We will now have a panel discussion on working anytime, anywhere and future internships. And I have the honor of welcoming our esteemed speakers. Jaspreet Bindra is a digital transformation and technology expert, best-selling author, speaker, teacher, coach, and entrepreneur. He has been recognized as the inaugural Digitalist of the Year by Mint and SAP, and is a partner and chapter leader of Singularity University. Until 2018, Jaspreet was the Chief Digital Officer of Mahindra Group of Companies. He is on the advisory board of Blockchain India and is the co-founder of Unqbe, a thought leadership company in the future of work space that prepares future-ready organizations. Jaspreet has authored the best-selling book, The Tech Whisperer, on digital transformation and technologies that enable it, as well as the Immune Organization, future-proofing organizations from COVID-like disruptions. Sandeep Kohli is the partner and talent leader at EY India. With over 30 years of experience, Sandeep has worked across the complete value chain of HR in multiple industries. He has been felicitated with a number of industry accolades, and some of the notable ones are CHRO of the Year by World HRD Congress and Influential HR Leader by CHRO Asia. Sandeep is also a founder of the NGO Let's Do Our Bit, a foundation that is working towards providing support to children from critical illness. Shweta Mehrotra is the Chief Human Resources Officer of Citi South Asia. Shweta has led the rollout of several initiatives, including My Career, which aims to empower employees to take charge of their career. It is Asia's Inspiring Women Leaders program intended to strengthen the female pipeline. Shweta is an economics graduate and holds a master's degree in personnel management and industrial relations from XLRI. Shweta Raina is the founder of Talerang. Talerang has impacted over 2 million students through partnerships with colleges, corporates, the media, and the United Nations Development Programme. Previously, Shweta was a director of the startup team of Teach for India and a consultant at McKinsey's New York City office. Shweta has been recognized as one of India Inc.'s rising women leaders by the Economic Times and a Woman of Courage by India Today. She is a graduate of Harvard Business School. She also graduated with distinction from Brown University. Welcome to all of you, and over to you, Jaspreet.
Thank you very much, Priyanka. Thank you. In fact, the topic of working from anywhere, including working from home, could not be even more topical. And I'm saying this not because of COVID, but I believe as of now, where I am in Gurgaon, there's a locust attack on way. Okay, so if you go and look at some of your Twitter feeds, I believe there are a few 100,000 locusts out there, and so this becomes even more topical. We have to stay somewhere inside and do work. Now, great to be here. Great to have be this wonderful conference, and great to have such amazing panelists, which I'm honored and privileged to moderate their panel today for the next 45 minutes or so. You know, many of us, many people have actually been calling COVID and the whole corona pandemic that is raging amongst us right now as a black swan, an event which is unpredictable and disruptive. The interesting thing is that Nassim Taleb, the guy who invented the whole black swan concept, actually does not call it a black swan. He says it is disruptive, but it was entirely predictable. Bill Gates predicted it, a bunch of epidemiologists predicted it, and so he calls it a gray swan, something which is super disruptive. I believe, however, that while the pandemic could be black, gray, whichever color of swans, the lockdowns are actually the black swan. We did not predict those, and how we would all be shut inside our homes locusts or no locusts. In fact, COVID has presented to us a very interesting paradox. It has slowed down the world, but it has accelerated change at the same time. And one of the places where we see this acceleration of change in front of our eyes is in work. The future of work was always going to happen. We were gradually, inexorably moving towards the future of work. But this particular pandemic has accelerated it and brought many aspects of the future of work to now, much faster than we ever thought. And one of those aspects, future of work in itself has many principles, but one of those principles, which is the decentralization of work, rather than working in one single place or city or country, large monolithic offices, everyone being there, it has kind of decentralized it almost overnight to working from home, or more aptly, I believe, working from anywhere, which includes home. And so working from anywhere would have office, would have home, would hopefully have parks, would have a coffee shop, maybe a few other places. And so that in itself has kind of become the big new normal or the new abnormal. And in fact, it's very interesting as we see that many organizations are actually thinking of extending, and Wasim was talking about it, of extending this whole work from home thing or work from anywhere principle, even beyond when the lockdowns are over and stuff is opened up. People are saying that, look, there are great things that we can learn from it. And in fact, in my latest little book, The Immune Organization, I call decentralized work one of the antibodies which can help us build an immune organization. Because if your entire organization is used to work and is equipped, and your culture and policies are now changed to work from anywhere at any time, next time when a disruption like this hits, we would be far, as an organization, be far more prepared. So be that as it may, these are all my thoughts, my theoretical thoughts, if it may, but I have three amazing, very experienced practitioners in the field of people, in the field of HR, and in the field of business, who we would love to chat about working from anywhere, working from home, and with a little bit of specific focus as we go a little forward on internships and virtual interns, if it may. So thank you very much, Shweta, Mehrotra, Shweta, Raina, and Sandeep. And I thought we could just quickly kick off with a question which is a mix of both what you would have experienced personally as well as your organizations. And if I may request Shweta Mehrotra to start, and we could go around the table on this one. As to in the last 3 months, in these last 3 super disruptive months, heading a large organization like Citi, what have been the 2 or 3 biggest challenges and learnings for you with your people, or maybe a little bit for yourself, specifically on this whole decentralized work and work from home concept? Let's start with there, Shweta, if that's okay with you. And if I could just ask you to unmute yourself.
Good idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jaspreet, and hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here on the panel talking about working from anywhere. It's very, very topical, very pertinent. And let me just start by saying that we actually have now been work from home at Citi for about 3 months. Almost 95% of our employees are work from home. And we have our branches open, so we have to have some people at the branches to man those branches. So that's really the 5%, but pretty much everybody's work from home. And when the lockdown got announced, we did see it coming, but we did not see it coming at such a pace where we would be asked to work from home or fully be work from home in about 4 hours. So the first few weeks was really around a few infrastructure challenges, if I can call it so, in terms of making sure all of our workforce is able to work from home. We have very robust COB plans. We test the COB plans on a periodic basis, but we did not have a COB where all of our sites are not going to be operational and everybody is going to be work from home. So the first phase was really around some of those as to how do we make everybody functional, everybody operational. And that got sorted fairly quickly, thankfully. And then we moved on to really, how do we make people productive, the engagement pieces of it? How do we really make sure that they are able to cope with it mentally as well? Because your lives got turned upside down. We have a lot of domestic help in India. We have a lot of support at home in India. And all of that just vanished in a matter of hours. So it was really adjusting to a new normal, and it was helping our employees to adjust to a new normal in terms of providing them all kinds of support, emotional, mental, and of course the infrastructure piece that I mentioned. I think the other piece is that when you're in office, work gets done, you don't even get to know. You would meet somebody in the corridor, you'll discuss about something and solved. And you don't realize that, that's the pace at which you're actually getting stuff done. But when you're sitting at home, you have to book a time and make that goal. So it takes that change in approach, if I may call it so. Also, it requires very different collaboration tools when you start to work from home, because some of the collaboration tools, when you have them in a physical setting, are not something that can be easily transferred to working from home. So I think there have been some of those things that we are thinking about working with our employees. I think the good news is that our employees have been very agile. And as they say, human beings in itself, we are very agile, and we really adapt to a new workplace very quickly. And this was in great demonstration in the last 3 months. We have not seen productivity drops. Everybody was very skeptical as to what would happen if everybody starts to work from home. And we honestly have not seen productivity drops. So the work from home seems to be working. And I would say one more interesting thing, Jaspreet, and I'll then hand it back to you. So beginning of this year, Citi started, talking about flex work in a much bigger way. We said if we really need to attract and retain the millennial work population, we will have to be more and more flexible than what we are today. So we had set up work streams and everything without, of course, knowing that we would be in a forced pilot of sorts for 3 months. And this has helped us immensely in terms of accelerating our journey to being more flexible. So yeah, it's been very interesting. There have been challenges, but I don't think there's anything that is insurmountable. And I do think there will be a before and after to this crisis. And the after to this crisis will bring about a lot of mindset change and acceleration to flexible working.
So we will certainly speak about that after this one first question, Shweta. In fact, that's something which I'm super interested in. But infrastructural challenges, collaboration tools, turning around in 4 hours, and in many ways, this becoming a POC, a proof of concept for your flex work, are the key things. Sandeep, if I may move to you now. You had another very large organization with similar or larger number of employees, and love to know whether your experiences and your organization's experiences were similar, and maybe some of the things which were different. Back over to you, Sandeep.
Yeah, quite similar to what Shweta shared. In fact, for safety of our people, we actually started working from home even before the lockdown. So actually, that gave us a little more, adjusting time as compared to some of the other organizations. So as far as my personal experience goes, I would say that working from home at a stretch is different, but it's not difficult per se. And this is the longest ever actually I have worked from home. And for me, it's working absolutely seamlessly. Initially, it took a little time to adapt for all of us in the organization, including me. But I think as long as you have a disciplined approach and you plan, I think it works very well. As Shweta rightly said, you could walk over to people earlier, and now you need to book time. But the good part is that I used to meet my team across the country only when I used to travel, right? And now I'm interacting with them, almost on a daily basis on a video. So it's it's like seeing them almost every day. And the all India team would always come together, when you had a large offsite or something like that. And that's when once in a year they could get to see each other. And now we have this bi-weekly thing in which all of the 200 people in my team actually come together and we connect. So I think the engagement part has actually enhanced it obviously can't take place, replace the, the physical connect that people used to have. But I think the engagement part has really gone up. As far as EY is concerned, being a consulting organization, we'd always invested in technology, I think, which served us well in this unprecedented time. We have this Microsoft Teams. I think it's an amazing collaboration tool. You don't feel, that you're not connected at any point in time. But as Shweta said, the important part, apart from safety of our people, was the whole engagement level. And that engagement level should not get compromised. That was our priority, both from a work perspective and also from a personal level. And that's why there was an enhanced focus on communication from all levels, and that we made sure that it happens from all levels, from top down, and even the managers communicating with their own teams and so on. And we started this unique concept called huddles, where there are fixed meeting times for every team, and the teams would come together, once in 2 days or once in 3 days, but this is all pre-planned, and the teams would come together, and there would be amazing collaboration, whether it is discussing projects, whether it is some sort of a learning which is happening, or people just having virtual coffee, or even virtual antakshris and so people are having fun. I personally feel, like Pramod was saying earlier, I don't miss traveling to office and being more relaxed at home. Only thing is, I do miss, as he said, using my formal clothes. I haven't worn shoes for 3 months now. So this is important. And other piece I think Shweta touched upon was on the importance of mental health. And that's where the organizations must focus, because this pandemic is also causing a lot of anxiety, and also you're spending too much time with your family, whom you never spent that time earlier. And that's not easy in some relationships. So you need that kind of support across, from the organization, and that's why the whole EAP services or counseling support and all that stuff which is being provided by the organization is coming in and helping people. But I do believe one thing, last thing, is that our people are putting more discretionary effort to make sure that the client deliverables and experience does not suffer. And I do feel it's working well.
That's amazing, Sandeep. And in fact, one of the things you said about talking to 200 people every week, is something which I've seen lots of CHROs and CEOs talk about. And in fact, not only has work decentralized in terms of, just location, it has also decentralized in terms of decision making in many ways, and whom you kind of speak with going down below the organization. So that's very interesting. In fact, work from home, as I was probably joking with you guys earlier, for me it's been work from home for the last 2 years. In fact, the only thing which has changed is now the other people, everyone else is also working from home. I call it WFH squared, as an entrepreneur. And so it's as an entrepreneur that I moved to Shweta Raina now, and to give a perhaps maybe similar, maybe a little different perspective of you being an entrepreneur with your own company, Shweta Raina. What's been your top 2 or 3 experiences over the last 2 or 3 months vis-a-vis you and your organization? Over to you, Shweta.
Okay, great. So I can answer this in 2 parts. One is, as a company, we're a very young company, and everyone is under the age of 35. So it's been very easy for us to adapt. And being in the edtech industry, a lot of our courses are delivered online. So it's been quite smooth. And in fact, it's been a positive transition, because now people need to actually work on, adapting to online learning. And earlier it was quite difficult to convince people to do that. So that's one advantage of the industry or the sector, which is not specific to Talerang. As a leader, what I felt is that hiring self-starters is really important. And I think as an entrepreneur, you can't sit and micromanage each and every employee. And while you can definitely give them workflow, you can give them projects, if you don't have entrepreneurial people, it's not going to work at the end of the day. And so I think I've realized more and more the importance of self-starters and the people on the team who are more followers, who require daily motivation. It's been a bit of a struggle for them, whereas the ones who are self-starters, wake up energized, motivated, it's been a lot easier to work with them. So that's been an observation as a leader, as a team leader. And I think one thing I noticed is that the mindset shift, initially it was just temporary. So everyone said, oh, we'll do this for a month and it'll be over. But I think now I've noticed there's been a huge mindset shift with our customers across India. So in the smaller towns especially, parents would say, we don't want to enroll our child in an online course. We'll wait for the lockdown to get lifted and would like people to come in to the classroom. But as people have realized that this is here to stay, I think the way that our customers in smaller towns, in tier 2, tier 3 towns are approaching learning online has really shifted. And I think that's been huge, because changing mindsets takes years. It would have taken 5-10 years to get those customers where they are. But I think in a 3-month period, they've realized that we need to adopt EdTech and we need to adopt online learning. And I think that's something that only this pandemic could have done. I don't think it would have been possible otherwise.
Yeah, you're right, Shweta. In fact, the pandemic has been, a few companies have been, in a sense, quote unquote, anti-fragile. They have gained from this pandemic, and, health tech companies, ed tech companies, the streaming companies, the OTT companies have actually kind of just zoomed up. And the other thing, which I think I totally agree with you in many ways, this concept of working from home. And remember, everyone's homes are not necessarily maybe like mine and ours, which are very big. They're very small. And so you need to literally compartmentalize yourself and be a self-starter in many ways, and will separate out the entrepreneurial people from the non-entrepreneurial people. Okay. And you will know as to, your career direction in many ways. You're a self-starter, you're in. So thank you for that, Shweta. Raina, the second question that I was looking to, have a discussion on follows from what Shweta Mehrotra actually was talking about the afterwards. The lockdowns are being lifted up. Hopefully one day we will have a vaccine soon. And so at least this crazy disruption will soon be history. And we have a choice. We can just go back to the way everything was, or hopefully possibly learn a few things which we perhaps might continue, or look at continuing. So if I was to again start with you, Shweta Mehrotra, and if there were, let's say, and let me just try and challenge you a bit, if there were 2 things, okay, that you think that you and your organization would carry forward, from this whole disruption and what it has done to work, if there are any.
Yeah, very pertinent question, Jaspreet. And as I was saying, I think there is a before and after to this crisis. I'm a big fan of the saying from Winston Churchill, where he said that never waste a good crisis. So I'm a big believer of that. And I think if we really go back to what we were before the crisis, we would have wasted this golden opportunity which has come our way. So to my mind, there is a huge mindset shift which is happening as we are going through this. Like I was mentioning before the crisis, if you really looked at India more broadly and even globally, I think this whole work from home was more need-based, where somebody had an issue or a need where somebody needed to work from home. Otherwise, the expectation was for employees to really show up at work, at offices, at sites. I think with this, there's been a huge mindset shift where people are saying that, look, this work from home thing works. This is something where we can run our businesses, be as productive, and yet give the flexibility to the employees so that they can manage their personal lives, hopefully in a much better way. So I think there is a lot of mindset shift which I would want to capitalize on for Citi, and I think that's the opportunity that we are working on. I think the other piece is that along with that is going to come in terms of evolving our technology platforms, technology tools to enable this. Like I was mentioning earlier, the collaboration tools we have today are great, but they can be better. And I think the organizations need to leverage a lot of those in a much better way, especially if we go into a more structured mass work from home kind of situations. So I would say that those are some of my thoughts in terms of how we would want to leverage the crisis. The last piece I would say is that I think the crisis also presents an opportunity for us to get access to larger talent pools. Mm-hmm. So you could have employees in different locations or different places, and this crisis does give us that opportunity. Pramod touched upon it briefly about access to more women employees, and we are very big on the diversity agenda. We are really, progressing this very aggressively in India and globally. And I think we would get more access to more diverse talent because of what the pandemic is going to leave us with. So with that, back to you.
Thank you, Shweta. Thank you very much. And the one which has really, the first thing that you said is deeply encouraging, in terms of you as the custodian of the company's culture in many places, looking at this disruption as an opportunity to actually accelerate the mindset shift, as I think something which would be amazing as you do that. Moving to you, Sandeep, what in your opinion would be, if I may say, two key things that you would take forward even after this crisis is over? You're muted, Sandeep.
Yes, thank you. While there are many things which are horrible around this pandemic, but there is also a silver lining out there. And the first one is what Shweta also talked about, is the whole acceptance by the leadership that the knowledge work can actually be done from anywhere. And this old mindset that had apprehensions around flexibility and work from home has really got trashed, because it has happened over a longish period of time and people have proven that they can be as productive. I think the second is the quick adaptation of digital. What the CTOs could not do for decades. I think Corona has done it in weeks. The kind of digitization which has happened with the organization, and we must continue on this journey of digitizing all our processes, including talent. I think talent is, in the talent space also, I think it's equally important that our processes cater to virtual and digital. And just one last piece which I want to add is I think the whole globalization of talent that will happen, which will come out of this. We are already seeing it. Earlier it was that, if our people were supposed to work in a project in UK or US, the clients wanted them to be sitting next to them, in front of them. And today clients are not in office themselves. So they're quite accepting of the fact that, the other people can be anywhere. So we don't have to worry about Trump putting rules around visas anymore, because I think we can bypass that and work globally still.
No, thanks, Sandeep. In fact, one of the things you said is music to my ears about this accelerated digitization / digital transformation that many companies, and as someone who works in that space, I'm seeing actually, and happily, I'm seeing a lot of that happen. Organizations coming and saying the pandemic has been a great leveler, so I can literally start again, and let me use digital technology to do so. I think the other bit in the digital part is that I think in many ways the CHROs will also have an important seat on the table in technology decisions, okay, because of this whole thing. I think that's another great thing, which hopefully, in this area, which we will bring. So moving to you, Shweta, Raina, and again, with your lens as being an entrepreneur in this space, actually, what are the couple of things, or maybe even three, okay, that you would want to take beyond when this is over?
So I think one is flexibility and resilience. So as an organization, large, small, whatever space you're in, I think you need to listen to your customers, you need to look at the environment, and you need to adapt quickly. And I think we take far longer than we need to make simple changes in our structure. And here, what I've realized is that we're making changes on a week-by-week basis. Because initially, everyone felt a survival threat. I think in the first few days when this happened, there was panic and people said, are we going to survive this? And when you go into survival mode, you become a lot more focused on how can I make things turn around and work in my favor. And I think we made a lot of changes that would have taken us years, but we made them overnight. And I want to continue that culture later as well, because I think we need to be, there's no time to wait for positive change, and whatever changes you can make, you should make them as quickly as possible. And I think, cutting through layers in the organization is really important, and not now that, everyone's working from home, I think it's a lot more flat because everyone is more accessible, and that makes change also easier in some ways. You don't have to wait for an appointment. You can just write an email and people are expected to respond, So I think that's made a huge change. And that's something I want to continue both at Talerang and in general. And I think the second thing is more personal. I feel that there's a lot of FOMO in terms of how we lead our lives. And I used to take multiple flights a month. I used to be traveling like crazy. And I think just being comfortable in your own space with your own self, without feeling the need to board a flight, go for a meeting. There were times when we would be in one city in the morning, another city in the evening, another country the next day. I think that mode of living is going to slow down, at least for me personally. I know there are some people who just can't wait to get back to that life. I personally have realized that a lot of travel that I did was probably not required. And a lot of people who I took maybe months to meet, I've been able to meet, like over a Zoom call, I've been able to meet 10, 20 people in a day. For example, say faculty members across India. If I had to meet faculty from different IITs, I would have had to go to IIT Delhi, go to IIT Bombay, go to, each one and meet them. Whereas now I can just do a Zoom call and they join because they're also realizing that Zoom is easier. So I think that's something that at a personal level, I feel is going to change for me. And I hope that people are going to recognize that it doesn't make sense to just go for the sake of going, to either a meeting or even a party. You can do the same thing over a call, and you don't have to socialize every night. You can, networking and socializing, I think, have reached totally crazy amounts. And especially, I think, for people like us who feel that we need to be doing everything all the time, I think it had almost become unhealthy. So I think taking time for yourself, taking time for your family is really going to be important for me now going forward.
Lovely, Shweta. Two things you said. One, in fact, I've had many people tell me that our planning horizons have considerably reduced. So, the 1-year plan, 3-year plans are now, and I can see the nods from everyone else here too, have become 3 months. And for smaller companies like you, 2 weeks, 1 week. And the other, this whole of FOMO thing, actually, someone introduced me to this concept of JOMO. I believe there's a book on it, which is actually the joy of missing out. I think we very quickly are moving from FOMO to JOMO. I certainly am. Again, that will be another balance that we will strike. I wanted to move to the third question, really, and which I will keep it open. Whoever wants to go first, because it might be an experience some of you have had and some of you have not had, which is about taking in interns at a time like this and onboarding them. And obviously, we all know that for most interns, if not all of them, it's their first ever corporate or work experience. And that first ever experience to be something so unusual would be quite interesting to see how did you guys tackle that and make it hopefully a joyful experience for them. So anyone who would like to go,
I can go first because we've just completed a large batch of interns. So virtual working has not really impacted our internship process. We honored all our internships that we had offered, and our intake, has been, we just completed a big batch of 115 interns from top B schools who just completed the internship with us. And then throughout their internship period, they were connected from their homes, so we couldn't give them laptops and so on. But because the technology was there, so we give them the VDA, which is the virtual desktop access, and they had access to every possible resource that they wanted to have in the organization and the people. And good part was that each of our interns actually worked on a live project of a client. So their integration also happened with the client. And our people are themselves are working from home. So there's another intern also working from home. It didn't make too much of a difference. But there were actually efforts required from both the interns and the mentors in terms of building relationships, forcing FaceTime, displaying initiative to learn and also to seek feedback. These were some of the things which would happen naturally because you're spending time with each other. And now you need that initiative to do that. But I do feel bad about one thing for these interns is that they did missed out on that physical office experience. But other than that, I think whether it was what they delivered out of their internship and what they learned, I didn't see any impact. It was as good as ever.
Fantastic. No, that's great to know. Shweta, any?
Yeah, so
it's good for me. I can just be efficient. Shweta.
Yes, that's easy for you. But I would agree with Sandeep. Similar experience. We had 200 plus interns who've already completed internships so far, and we have a large batch which is going to come on board in July as well. And very similar experience. I think the delivery has been great by all the interns, and the connectivity and the impact that they have been able to have has been commendable. I don't think the virtual piece really impacted the delivery part of it as much. I think the challenge with the virtual piece is really around how do you assimilate them culturally? How do they get to feel the organization a little more? And we enable that through doing several sessions, their ability to connect with all leaders. I did a couple of sessions with all the interns. I know our CCO did a few sessions with the interns, and most of the top leadership connected with them as well, just to give them a flavor of what Citi is all about, because you're not in office, you're not experiencing it every day. So that's the path that we took. And I think that, our experience was actually quite positive. It works. The virtual internship works in terms of delivery, in terms of understanding what the interns are about and their skill sets.
Lovely.
So I can add it from two perspectives. One is bringing in people into our own company, which hasn't changed significantly, because I think whatever we would do offline in terms of orientation, we just continued the same. We already have structured check-ins with managers and feedback check-ins, weekly team bonding exercises, etc., which are anyway virtual, given that there are people in multiple. So I think that didn't really change for us as a company. But I think what did change was when we're placing people in other organizations. So at Talerang, what we do is we select students from different colleges, and they apply to us. We train them on 21st century skills, and then we connect them to organizations for internships and jobs. So we help people get work ready. And when we were connecting people for internships, I think initially we saw that there was this whole wave of companies who were flexible and were excited and were ready to take them on. And then there was another set of companies who said, we're not sure whether this will work out. And seeing those companies convert has been really positive. Seeing them be happy with the productivity, seeing them, I think there's this whole insecure middle manager level that's really nervous about, these people won't be productive and how am I going to micromanage them? So getting them to realize that it's not a big deal. People can be productive, and managing them and getting our corporate partners to be more open, I think, was something that took us more time in terms of onboarding than internally as an organization. And I think going back to what I said earlier about self-starters, I think people don't have patience right now to work with people who are not performing. So coaching and mentoring is something at an intern level that used to be done a lot more. And I think that's something that now, as we're onboarding when forming organizations, that it's really important that you take out that little bit of time, because a little bit of patience will go a long way in making sure that this person does do well and their entire career is in front of them. And this one experience is going to shape how they view your organization and your industry. So take that little time to mentor them. Just because they're not in front of you having chai doesn't mean that you can't take out half an hour on a Saturday to actually be kind to them, ask them about their motivation. Don't just keep it restricted to work. Take that time to get to know this Gen Z or millennial, because that's what motivates the youth. They're not here for only the money. They want mentors, they want coaching, they want feedback. And organizations, I think if they can do that as part of their internship programs, it becomes a win-win for the student as well. And it's not just a resume builder that, okay, I did an internship, but it's a life-changing experience. So that's what we're trying to, change in terms of how interns are being handled remotely.
Lovely, thank you. Quick follow-up question to this, anyone again. Do you think you will continue with virtual internship from next year?
I personally feel that we had an internal discussion and we feel that we can actually take more interns now.
Interesting, very good. And I'm sure there are lots of young people feeling extremely happy with
because we were limiting ourselves to a few institutes, and now we can possibly take more interns if we do it this way.
And you can get interns from anywhere in the world. So, we've had interns from New York, we've had interns from London, we've had people from small towns who couldn't otherwise intern. Earlier, someone living in Delhi didn't want to intern in Gurgaon, So now that's no longer an issue. So I think the access is improved and placements are going to only go up when it comes to internships.
Fantastic. Great. We have about 15 more minutes, and I did want to, another question, I thought it'll be better if we kind of open it up. But before I do that, we've been an amazing panel, but I didn't want to let you off so easily. So I'm going to ask you two questions, which are, if I may say so, a little provocative. They're not difficult, they're a little provocative. and if you could, and the best part is that you need to limit your answer to as close to a yes or no as possible. Okay, I never ask yes or no, it never happens. Okay, but as close to a yes or no as possible. So the first one really is that, as well, two CHROs and someone who works in that industry, next time when you take people, Sandeep and Shweta, you're interviewing people for a job, will you ask them the question of, will you relocate to where we are? The most dreaded question in most interviews, across levels.
I can start by saying that, look, it depends on the role. There would be some roles which can be fully done virtually. There would be some roles which would require people to come in. There would be merit in getting them in, though maybe with a little more flexibility than we have had in the past. So it will depend on the role.
Okay, but more flexible than you used to be.
Without a doubt. Okay. As I said, if we don't, then it's a crisis wasted.
Lovely. Sandeep, Shweta?
Yeah, I would think so. A lot depends upon the role, but there will be a lot more flexibility. I don't think like people are talking about death of the office. I don't think that's happening. But I personally feel that there'll be a lot more acceptance in terms of flexibility of where people are working from. A lot of our people have actually gone to their hometowns right now. Because it doesn't make a difference if they're living in a PG over here and working versus they're working from their own hometown. So a lot of people have gone back and it's working. But possibly when when some face-to-face interaction is required, at that point in time they'll be required. So
no, absolutely no, they can always travel, relocation and travel. I expect Shweta, Raina to answer saying that I never asked them anyway.
Yeah, I think it's about culture building. It comes down to culture building, and as companies become good at culture building online, then they wouldn't need that. And I think it's working now because people have built that culture and they already have bonds. So it's been easy to move online. But we need to make sure that we're able to build culture, long-lasting culture online. And once we're confident about that, then we don't need to get people to relocate.
Fantastic. I worked when I was interviewed, one of the places I worked, as I was told, was the chief digital officer for the Mahindra group. And I actually did that for many years while actually living out of Gurgaon and not being at Mahindra Towers, though I had an office there, etc. And I used to travel a lot. And it was something which was probably, Mahindra, obviously great company, but still rooted to its corporate traditions. And so it was considered to be a very brave thing to do, and therefore also foolhardy. But now the same CEOs, and I continue working with many of them, say that they would never even think, they would not bother where I would be working from. While at that time it was. So I think we're definitely seeing this mindset changes and this movement. And yes, the office will never die. You'll need to have a hybrid. The second provocative question. Okay, and the last one, I assure you. Okay. One of the tenets of the work, of future of work, and it getting decentralized, is this thing about one company, many employees to one employee, many companies. And we're seeing that in the gig economy in some way, etc., etc. So, do you think you would be more open to, if someone said, forget the legal aspect of it. Okay, if someone said that, look, I'll be working with you and I'll deliver your outcomes, but I'll also be doing this and I'll also be doing that. Okay, whatever that this and that is. So anyone who wants to,
I can go first. I think at EY we started, getting into the gig space almost 2 years ago. So we have this platform called Gig Now.
Yes, I've heard of it.
Yeah, and that's where people come forward, put up their skills that they have to offer, and then we use those skills. And being a consulting organization, possibly it is easier for us because we work from project to project, and it's very easy for us to choose those skills, work on the project, and move on. So for us, gig working becomes easier. And secondly, it is also more, there are two more advantages. One, it is cost effective because I'm not hiring a specialist, when I know I don't have a need for that specialist beyond that particular project. And the second thing is that I'm able to hire, the best of skills and not really rely upon only the skills which are available in my organization. So for us in the consulting space, it is actually working quite well. And I see that as the future.
Brilliant. Shweta's.
So let me start and I'll pass it on to you, Shweta. I think conceptually, it's a great idea. And I'm talking more from a banking industry lens. It makes sense. You would have access to a broader talent pool. You would hire talent when you need the talent. So you don't have to really onboard people for a longer period of time. But I think for that, there's a lot of evolution that needs to happen to the regulations, to how we look at information security, and so on and so forth. So it's going to be a lot harder for the regulated parts of the industry than the non-regulated parts of the industry. And it's going to take a very big change in the ecosystem per se, if we have to go that route.
Thank you very much, Shweta. That was a very considered answer. Thank you. Shweta, Raina.
Yeah, so I think I mentioned this at some point, just touched upon it, that we are now a completely online company. We're completely virtual. So we're not planning to go back to the traditional office space model at all. And I think in that setup, we cannot really restrict people to only work for us eventually, because they might want to also be able to visit, an organization which has an internet presence or a non-profit in their community where they can interact with people as well. Since our organization is going to be purely digital in terms of how we operate. So I think that's one reason why we're going to be a lot more open now, because there might be some people who crave that human interaction on a day-to-day basis. And for them, I think we would need to be open. But otherwise, I'm very greedy when it comes to top performing employees. I want them to just just be completely immersed in Talerang 24/7, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, because we just have goals and we can't achieve that if people are distracted. So I think as an entrepreneur, it's obsessive. We cannot have people distracted. So for certain roles, I think we'll be flexible for our trainers, for people who crave that in-person interaction. But otherwise, if someone is just dedicated and driven to Talerang and our mission, I would be delighted.
Thank you, Shweta. And now you know why I don't ask only yes or no in provocative questions like this. But just to kind of do a little time check, Priyanka or anyone else, how much do we, first of all, and if so, how much time do we have for questions, answers, please? So if Priyanka or Pranay or anyone from Ashoka would help me with the answer after unmuting themselves.
Jaspreet, we have time right now. The next session starts at 12:45.
Okay, so maybe a couple of questions then. And I was actually looking at some of the questions which you've been kind enough to send me on WhatsApp. And I just thought I'll pick up a couple from the audience. One of them is interesting, and some of you have and touched upon it in many ways. And I think Shweta, Mehrotra, you touched upon it lately. So the person is asking, good insights, wanted to get panel's views on how important is trust as the basic premise as we transition to work from home to the extent of 95%, etc. And so this trust question, maybe if we haven't, there's always this trust versus cybersecurity, etc. So I would just hand this over to anyone who would want to take the trust question, please.
No, I can start, and I think while why it has also been easier for us now to move into a virtual environment, because there has been a lot of trust built and relationships built over a period of years with the same people working. So it was kind of easier. But as we move forward, and now for the last 3 months we've been hiring and onboarding people whom we've not met, interviewed, hired, on board, and we've not met them face to face. And for those people, as well as for their managers or the people that they're working with, it will be really important to build that relationship and to build that trust, and to assume that it will happen over a working relationship. It may not be the right assumption, and we may fall apart on a few people. So I think people will have to make an effort, both from the new hire as well as from the manager's point of view. They do have to make extra efforts to build that connection, to take that initiative, to build that relationship. It's very important.
Great.
I would agree. I mean, I think, in our industry, that's the premise of doing business. So it's important. And the reason why we have been able to so seamlessly move into a work from home environment is because that trust was established amongst the employees and their managers and their business heads and so on and so forth. To Sandeep's point, I actually totally agree that it is going to continue to be important, but it would be a lot harder to build that trust in a virtual environment. It'll take more energy, more effort. It's not saying that it cannot be done. It very much can be done, because I'm sure, all of us who work with the clients who may be offshore or in locations, you work with them, you establish that relationship of trust. So it's very possible. It just takes a little more effort.
Thanks, Shweta. And Shweta, Raina, there was another question for you specifically from a panelist who has asked, do you feel that behavioral skills can be developed via online interventions? And if yes, how open are organizations to initiate such programs during this time of change?
Yes, and definitely. Both, I would say, are positive. I think companies, some of them are still waiting for the situation to improve. But those that sort of feel that this is the new normal and it's going to go on for a year, they are more open. So it also depends on your estimates and predictions of the current situation. In terms of virtual training and virtual offsites, team building, onboarding, I think all of that is much easier online in some ways, because you can onboard people while they're finishing up with college. And when they're done with college, while they're in the last 6 months, you can actually train them, onboard them, so that when they join you, they're already ready. And then you can do a little bit of training once they join. So I think it's a lot more efficient, and you don't need to, of course, fly them down. We not touched upon the cost factor, but it's a huge cost saving. We just did a virtual offsite for my team, and I was looking at last year's budgets and plans, and this year's was zero, So it was just amazing. So I think once companies also realize they can save costs, it makes sense from a business perspective. In terms of training ratings, we haven't seen a drop in the rating. So in terms of how people are perceiving the quality of the training, we haven't seen that change as well. So I think that's one, it's a numerical indicator that it isn't really making a big difference. So I think people will over time, as they see proof of concept. So a lot of organizations have told us, okay, we'll give you 50 or we'll give you 100 people. If you can work with these and you can do a proof of concept, then we'll agree to maybe, a cohort of 1,000. But for example, IIT Bombay, they are one of the first colleges to say we're going to go completely online till December. And they're now exploring pre-placement training for 2,500 students at IIT Bombay with us, which is going to be completely virtual. And doing that in person was a mammoth task. It was an extremely exhausting and mammoth task. So I think for everyone, it'll be a benefit. Great. Both colleges, corporates, and individuals, if they can get trained online.
Lovely. I have one question each, which has been specifically asked to Shweta, Mehrotra, and Sandeep, and I'll ask those, and then we'll close for the day. Sandeep, a lot of people have actually been taken up by your gig now concept. I think you're going to see some enhanced traffic later today. But one of the questions that's coming is that what level of inputs for EY at the moment come from gig workers, and how much is it expected to change because of COVID?
Well, sir, right now we are very large, 50,000 people in India. So obviously the percentage is very small because it started only about 2 years ago. Also, the involvement of the gig workers is more like project members right now rather than people who are taking decisions. So I see that over a period of time, I think if we start having more talent at a different level, which is willing to come as gig workers, I think it is going to grow.
Lovely.
Can't predict the number, but it will grow.
Okay. So there are some furious WhatsApps telling me to wrap up, but Shweta, Mehrotra, I want to give you this last question before that happens. During the pandemic, demand has dropped considerably, someone is asking you. So how do you measure employee productivity when you say it has not dropped when the demand side has collapsed? If you would like to answer that.
So that's a really good question. And I think you can measure productivity with what the employees are being asked to do and on that basis. So at this point in time, whatever the employees are being asked to do, I think we are not seeing any drop in productivity. And surprisingly, we have a large CSC. So we have about 15,000 employees who are a part of our CSCs, which service the globe. So the demand may have dropped in India considerably, but the demand has not dropped across the globe at the same time. So even for those where we have not seen a drop in demand, we are seeing that employees have been able to cope and the productivity has not dropped.
Fantastic. No, I think so that global thing is not only working from a supply perspective, it's also working from a demand perspective.
That's
so
right.
It works both ways. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for your time. We have pretty much stuck to time. It's still not 12:46, Priyanka. And so I would just again thank the panelists for a wonderful, candid, fun discussion. And the locusts have gone, by the way. So I think we can all head out now. Thank you again. Thank you very much. And back to Priyanka.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Jaspreet, Shweta, and Sandeep for such an engaging discussion. That was an absolutely wonderful session with Jaspreet's fantastic moderation and some very interesting perspectives on the game-changing effect of a long-term shift to remote working, including the humorous part about FOMO and JOMO, which many of us have started experiencing and are appreciating. As Sandeep and Shweta mentioned, organizations are rising up to the occasion to ensure productivity and engagement without compromising on mental health. Our collaborative tools have to be updated and agile teams have to take over. Flexibility is the key. Work from home seems to be working, and Shweta's very interesting perspective on virtual internships, which are a critical gateway to boosting the quality and quantity of employable young people, not only in India, but also globally, is increasingly gaining significant importance. Thank you all for that wonderful discussion. It's a pleasure to have had that session. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.